When my guest tonight was awarded a football scholarship to Notre Dame, the press said he was too little and was going to be killed. Joseph Robert Theisman proved them all wrong, setting multiple passing records for the Fighting Irish and playing in 163 consecutive games for the Washington Redskins, including a victory in Super Bowl 17. But before he would become a first-team All-Pro quarterback, did you know he was drafted in the 39th round by baseball's Minnesota Twins? Spent his first 3 years as a professional football player in the Canadian Football League and had a ritual of reading People magazine before games. Tonight, we'll learn what makes this undeniable icon who he is. A man who once said, "I was always told that I was too small, too skinny, too slow, not tough enough." Please welcome NFL MVP and College Football Hall of Famer, Joe Theisman. Buddy.
Great to see you.
Yep.
How are you?
Thank
Good.
you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. Oh.
We just bumped hair, first of all, sitting down.
At least we have hair to bump.
Well, you know, some
important.
do. You have more. You have a luscious mane of hair on you.
Thank you very much.
It's really exciting to be that close to great hair. I'm not going to lie to you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, tell me about the early years. You know, I'm fascinated by how you grew up and you were protected in New Jersey. Am I wrong?
No, not at all. It was actually, growing up the way I did, protected would be a very good way to describe it. I grew up in South River, New Jersey, a little town about 35 minutes from New York City. But it might have well has been 3,500 miles away because it was the big city and we never went there. I lived 2 blocks from my high school, my grammar school. And so for me, my mother and father wanted to find me. They just went up to the school because there was a baseball field, basketball court, football field, and that's where I would always be. I have a younger sister, Patty, who I used to harass the living daylights out of because she had red hair. And it was, hey, red, hey, carrot top, and she hated me. She ultimately hated me because I harassed the living daylights out of her. And if I ever did anything, she would look at me and say, "I'm going to tell Dad."
Was your dad a tough love guy? Was he a belt guy? I mean, I'll admit right now my dad was a belt guy.
I'll tell you a story about my father one day. I was probably 13, 14 years old. And we had a little house on Arlington Avenue, New Jersey, and it had a pitched roof. And my room was going to be upstairs because my sister and I shared a room for a long time, and now I was getting older, so I had to have my own room. So my dad was building this room for me, and he was putting sheetrock up. And he asked me for something, and I smarted off. And I said something. Next thing I knew, my head was through the sheetrock. And I'm like, and my father says, "You got anything else to say?" "No, sir, that was it. That's the last time I ever said anything to my dad, except thank you, yes, sir, and no, sir." And that was the end of it. I mean, he literally put my head through a sheetrock. And thank goodness there wasn't one of the board struts there, or else who knows what it would have been in, early concussion. But yeah, that was the end. It was.
A parent now would be sent to Guantanamo Bay.
Oh, I know, they'd be sent away forever. My dad owned a gas station for 25 years, worked at my uncle's liquor store for 25 years. My mother and father's combined income was $12,000 when I was a kid growing up. I mean, think of trying to survive today on 3 times that. It's tough. And it was this way. Sunday, we'd go to church. My dad was Catholic. My mother was Methodist, so we were raised in a Methodist church. So we'd come home from church. He would plop down in his easy chair, and before you know it, he'd just be dozing off, just resting. I'd go outside and say, "Dad, come on, let's go throw the ball around." He'd get up from that chair, and he'd come out, and we'd go out and throw the ball in the yard a little bit. 10 minutes later.
Back to the chair.
No, one of my buddies come running by. "Hey, Joe, come on, we're going up to the field. Let's go." "Hey, Pop, thanks a lot. Here's the ball. See you later." I did that time after time after time, but never once. All the times I went to my dad, who was tired, and I've thought about this so often as I've grown older, never once did he say to me, "Joey, look, you're going to be gone in 10 minutes. How about if you just let me relax here and take it easy?"
He got up.
He always got up. He always went out there, and he always knew exactly what the outcome was going to be. Could be 15 minutes, could be 5 minutes, but it wasn't much longer than that. And he was gone. So people say, "Who was your hero?" My father was, because he was there. He made himself available even in the limited time when I really saw him. My grandmother basically raised us because my mom and dad worked.
obviously athletically gifted beyond it. I talked to one of your high school best friends, and he said, you know, it didn't matter. Run him out on the basketball court, the baseball field, out on the football field, obviously, tennis, whatever. He plays tennis like Roger Federer. Where's all this athletic?
Not quite.
Okay, but this athletic ability is coming from Mom, Olga?
Mom. My mom really was the one, because Dad was working so much, Mom was the one that I noticed the athletic dexterity with. And I loved it. I always wound up, I was a skinny little kid. I mean, my mother wouldn't let me play football for my first 2 years.
Which is an unbelievable story. She wouldn't let you play football till you were 12.
Right.
And in order for you to be allowed to play football, you had your buddy Tom come over dressed out in his football uniform to show your mom the amount of padding that somebody has on a football field.
We had to convince her that I would be safe and okay, because she didn't want her Joey to get hurt. Little Joey would get hurt. So I really pleaded for 2 years. Finally, at the age of 12, she relented and let me go play Pop Warner football.
That's a skinny kid.
That's the way it was for a lot of years.
Maybe your mom wasn't wrong to want you protected out on the football field.
I don't think any mom's ever wrong to want to protect their children. It's just that at some point, you just can't build a box around them. You have to let them go out and fall down and get up on their own. And I think my mother finally realized there was a time when I just have to sort of let him go and do it.
When I talked to your buddy Tom, and you guys were a tremendous high school football team. Guys would go over to Staten Island because the drinking age was 18. Yeah. In our hometown, it was 21. And so by the time you're a senior, he said, we'd grab the cheerleaders and we'd go over. We never even asked Joe because he wasn't into that kind of stuff.
No. My whole world was sports. Everything was sports. If you smoked, you couldn't be an athlete. If you drank, you couldn't be an athlete. And so from the beginning, and it wasn't necessarily that my mother or father basically said, hey, look, if you do this, here are the consequences. It was something that I just developed over time myself and said, you know, it doesn't serve me well.
But for this father who never said no, who got out of the chair, I know he also got out of the chair to take you over to watch the Jets.
Yeah.
And the Jets, that was your team.
That was my team.
And then Joe Namath pops up. Oh, my God, there is a celebrity quarterback who is unlike any other before him.
And he was.
It's funny because knowing what I know about you, you said to yourself, it seems, that's what I want to be.
Yeah. I mean, I went out and I had my mother buy a bathroom rug. I wanted my own llama skin rug in my room.
Yeah, he was known for having a llama skin rug.
And so my mom bought this shaggy bathroom rug, and that was my llama skin rug. And then when I played in high school, I used to walk around. Joe used to walk around with his shoulders slumped a little bit, and he used to tap his chest. And so I started doing that.
So you're barely over 150 as a senior on this undefeated team in South River.
That's because I had a great receiver in Drew Pearson.
Yeah.
Drew was my wide receiver in high school.
For those NFL fans, Drew Pearson, the Cowboy great, was your receiver. He was 2 years younger than you.
2 years younger. When I left, he became the quarterback.
Now, all of a sudden, Notre Dame drops out of the sky. I know you wanted to go to Duke. The grades weren't good enough.
Right. I visited 5 schools. I limited down to 5, just to try and make things a little more sane in the determination of where I wanted to go. Penn State, Notre Dame, UNC, Wake, and NC State. Those 5 schools. Visited all of them.
But as a 5'11", 152-pound quarterback?
Size means nothing. It depends on your attitude going forward. I mean, to me, I wasn't too small. When I grew up, going back a little bit when I was in high school, when I was 13, I played with guys that were 15 and 16. When I was 15, I played with guys that were 17 and 18. I was always sort of playing up a level, whether it was the skills that I had, the athletic ability I had. I could hold my own with them. And so to me, there wasn't really a mountain that was too high that was presented in front of me that I couldn't quite climb. I felt I never feared the top of the mountain. I never thought I couldn't get there.
You go to Notre Dame, and there was a headline somewhere that said, basically, Theisman's going to get his
I believe it was a Newark, New Jersey newspaper that said, Theisman will get killed at Notre Dame. And if there's one thing about me that I think a lot of people realize, if you want me to do something, tell me I can't. Go ahead and challenge me. You can call it pride. You can call it spite. I don't care what you call it. Inside of me, if someone says, I don't believe you can get that done, I will do everything I can to get it done. I was one of 13 quarterbacks because back in '67, what Notre Dame would do is they would sign all these great quarterbacks because they were athletes. Some would become defensive backs, some would become wide receivers, some would become linebackers, some would become
athletes,
tight
they were
ends.
smart.
I was so small. Yeah, they were bright. Some of us weren't as bright. And then now skinny again. I mean, there are women that would kill for a waist like that.
So
they really,
13.
but they couldn't do anything with me. That was the thing. I was too small. This is where my size really benefited me. I was too small to become a running back or a wide receiver or a defensive back or anything else. So I remained as the quarterback. And I was the freshman quarterback. But I did something that I look back and say, this is really one of the most intelligent things I've ever done. Because there were 13 other quarterbacks, I decided to go to Notre Dame 1 week early. And I met with the coaches, and I figured out where to stand in the huddle. And I learned some of the plays, and I learned the cadence, because we all know, whether you're in business or sports, coaches or executives, they like meetings to run smooth. Coaches like practices to run smooth. They don't want to be correcting you. Where do you stand? No, you didn't get the play out. I invested 1 week of my life going into Notre Dame early, sitting with the coaches. So when everybody else got there, I created the #1 position just by showing up early. I created myself an opportunity. Now, could I keep it? Who knew? Was I good enough to be able to play the position and stay there? I didn't know. I thought I was. But at least I was given the chance, because I went in 1 week early. And today I describe it in a book I'm writing, it's a competitive edge. How do you create a competitive edge for yourself? For me, it was an investment of 1 week in time where I got to move to the head of the line. And then it was up to me to be able to seize the opportunity and keep it if I could.
Which happened your sophomore year. Hanratty, right. Terry Hanratty gets hurt, and you step in.
Terry went down, I believe it was for Pittsburgh game. He went down late on a Friday. Era walked over and said, "You're in." And that was
what's that like?
That right there, that moment right there is one of the most scary moments in your life. But you can't let them know you're scared. So you get in that huddle, you kneel down, and you look up, and they have to believe the next words that are coming out of your mouth. All right, guys, look, I know Terry's not here, but we can get it done. Let's go. Frank, all right, let's go. Now, I don't know whether I'm talking to them or I'm talking to me. But I'm trying to convince both of us that we can go get this done. And then, fortunately, you have something positive happen, and then it starts to build, and now all of a sudden you're the quarterback of the University of Notre Dame. Then we go out to Southern California to play them. The vaunted Southern California
great
Trojans.
rivalry.
Another great rivalry. We go out and wind up playing them in a game. I believe that was the year with O.J. Simpson and that unbelievable football team of theirs. And first pass I throw is picked off, run back for a touchdown by Sandy Durko. So I jogged by the sidelines. I walked by Era, and I said, "Don't worry about it. I'll get it back." And Era told me that particular moment was when it confirmed to him that he had made the right choice to give me the opportunity to play quarterback.
But that's been the mark of Joe Theisman. As your friends back in high school called you, which I know and you don't know that I know, Joe Sparkle.
No.
They called
I don't know how they came up with that.
Joey Sparkle.
Joey Sparkle. I go, oh, you kidding
He's
me?
our little star. He's our little straight-laced star. That's what Tom said. Joey Sparkle.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, so a lack of confidence has never been an issue.
No. I've been accused of stepping probably over that line quite a bit. But no, I look at it this way, Joe. If you don't believe in who you are, who's going to believe in you? You have to be able to take the bull by the horns and say, I can do this. I believe in me. I believe in my ability. I'll put the work in. I'll put the time in. I'll take the time to learn what I need to learn. But I can do this. And then you have to be focused on where you want to go. And I guess for me, it started way back then.
So your senior year is 1970.
Right.
You're playing great. You're in the Heisman Trophy conversation. Yeah. And tell us about the switch, because up till that year, everybody knew you as Joey Theisman.
That's correct. I was a Theisman for 20 years of my life. And Roger Valdesari, who was our public relations director at the University of Notre Dame, the year before my junior year, I had a really good junior year as well. We did as a football team, and I particularly did as well. And so a reporter, I guess, from Chicago was standing on the sidelines watching spring practice. And he walked up and just mentioned to Roger, he says, "Hey, isn't that Joe Theisman like in Heisman out there?" And it stuck with him. He never said a word to me. All through spring, at the beginning of my senior year, he calls me in the office. He says, "How do you pronounce your last name?" I said, "It's Theisman." He said, "No, it's not. It's Theisman." I said, "No, it's not. It's Theisman." He said, "Joe, I want to tell you something. There's a trophy out there called the Heisman Trophy. It goes to the best college football player in the country. We think you have a chance to win that trophy, but we're not just going to count on your athletic ability, nor are we going to count on the reputation of the University of Notre Dame. We think just by changing the pronunciation of your last name from Theisman to Theisman to rhyme with Heisman, we can get you that trophy." And that's how my name was changed.
Is it at all insulting, or does it bother your family?
No, because I needed confirmation. So I called my grandmother, who was the matriarch of the family. I called my grandmother and I said, "Granny, I got a question for you." She says, "Go ahead, what you got?" I said, "Gram, they want to change the pronunciation of our last name from Theisman to Theisman. How do you feel about it?" She says, "Well, you know, the correct pronunciation is actually Theisman. So that seems to be a bit closer. I'm okay with it." And so I was fine with it. It was because my grandmother had blessed the changing of the name that it didn't bother me. And so it really didn't insult the family at all. And that's the way, that's the way it's been ever since. So just as the Heisman Trophy balloting was taking place, I sat in Roger Baldessari's office. I'm sitting there and I lose. And I'm well, okay.
It was Plunkett.
Right.
You.
Archie, I believe, was
Archie.
third. Yeah, that way was the third.
The great Archie Manning comes in third behind you.
I know. It's the only thing in that family that hasn't won a championship. It's amazing.
Okay, so go ahead.
And then you say all the right things. Well, it's so great to be considered as one of the best quarterbacks in college football, and what a great honor it was. You say those things, but you don't believe it. You're disappointed. Yeah, you'd love to have won, and certainly Jim deserved it. There's no question. But you'd like to have been the guy. You'd like to have not finished second.
But the draft is going to come up, and you're thinking, hey, I'm Joe Sparkle.
Hey, well,
I'm Joe Theisman. I'm Joe Theisman. I'm a first-round talent. I just played at Notre Dame. I'm second in the Heisman voting first round. Here we go.
The reason I believe I'm a first-round talent is because people were telling me I was a first-round talent. I get calls from different teams saying, if you're around in the 15th pick, we're going to take you. If you're going to be here, we're going to take you. So now all of a sudden we get to the draft, and I'm excited. I'm in Roger's office once again, and the draft is going on, and the first round goes by, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, fine. And then the second round goes by, and I'm going, okay, maybe it's the third round goes by. I turned to Roger. I said, I'm going down to play basketball. Call me if anybody wants me. I was pissed. I wanted to play football. I wanted to play professional football near Jersey, Philly, New York, somewhere around there. Of course, the Jets would have been unbelievable. So I get down to playing hoop, and all of a sudden Roger comes out and he says, Joe, Miami Dolphins just picked you in the 4th round. So now I'm the 4th round pick, and it's okay. I didn't realize that the most important thing about being drafted is being drafted.
So is this your 4th round pick, but is this back to too slow, too little?
I think my size was the biggest problem.
Okay.
People felt I was too small. I was really 175 pounds. 5 feet 11 and a half, 175 pounds. I was a little guy. I had a big arm, but was I going to be able to withstand professional football, the physical nature of professional football?
I want to ask you about this quote. I was always told that I was too small, too skinny, too slow, not tough enough. And I feel like that is, of all the quotes we could have picked,
yeah,
that's the one that has run through your life since you were a little kid.
It drives me. It drives me every day. It drives me to try and be a smarter person. It drives me to become more educated. It's more than just those words to me. It's a lifestyle. The toughness part is the one that I guess sits in my craw probably more than anything. I'm not tough enough. Whoever decided I wasn't tough enough, like I said, I'll roll down and fight anybody if I have to, if I want something bad enough. And so I wind up flying down to Miami. And at that time, Joe Thomas was the general manager of the Miami Dolphins, but he was having open heart surgery. So I had an opportunity to meet Mr. Joe Robbie, who was the owner. And Don Shula thinks it's a done deal. Don's a big Catholic guy, loved Notre Dame. And so I go down and I go on Miami television, come heck or high water, I'll be a Miami Dolphin. I sit down with Mr. Robbie, and I didn't have an agent, which was a huge mistake.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about that.
Huge mistake.
Okay,
I got involved personally. I got involved personally in it.
Right.
It became personal for me.
Right, and that's if an agent serves one purpose, It's to allow you the distance so that you don't get your feelings
Keep the
hurt.
emotions out.
Because the other side is negotiating against paying you what you want.
Right.
And they're going to bring things into the conversation that if you're on the other end of the phone line is insulting.
He says, what do you want? You're going to love these numbers. I want $35,000, $45,000, and $55,000. And I want a $35,000 signing.
This is over a 3-year period.
It's over a 3-year period, absolutely. And I want a $35,000 signing bonus. He said, you got it. And I said, no, that's not the way it works. We're supposed to talk a little bit,
right,
have conversation.
I'm going to say 35, I meant 55.
Give and take, whatever it might be. The problem arose was they had a clause in there that said, if I didn't show up for any of those years, I would have to pay back the money that I'd already received.
If you, in essence, didn't make the team.
Well, no, if I, for
cut,
some reason,
why wouldn't you show up?
But the point was, is that we have to remember that was the end of the Vietnam War. I didn't know where this country was going to go. We didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, I'd already gone through a lottery as far as the draft goes. I was number 283. We drafted by birthdays. That's when there was a draft. Today it's a volunteer service.
There's a number you don't ever forget.
No,
right?
never forgot it. As a matter of fact, the first birthday they came out was September 5th. Mine was September 9th. I'm going, uh-oh. I'm going to wear out the month of September. I hope not. And then as these years go on, you move further and further down. So I went back and forth with them. All this time I was in communication with Leo Cahill, who was the coach of the Toronto Argonauts, who had drafted me in the first round. They were going to offer me 50, 50, 50,
to go
50,
to Canada.
Go to Canada. So finally, I get disillusioned with the process, exactly what we were talking about. Now I think my feelings are hurt.
Yeah,
Now,
you got
I don't have a buffer. So I wind up calling Leo, and I said, Leo, is the offer still on the table? He says, I want you to fly to Toronto. They offer 50, 50, 50, but he said, if you leave this house tonight, that offer is off the table. I signed it. So I signed now with the Argonauts. I haven't signed the Miami contract. I signed with the Argonauts. I fly back to South Bend, Indiana. 6 o'clock in the morning, my phone rings. Hello, it's Era. What in heaven's name have you done? I said, I've signed with the Argonauts. He says, I know. Shula's on his way up here right now. Don flew from wherever, because he thought I was a done deal. He flies from wherever he was, comes up to South Bend, and I would have to say that being railed would be an understatement. I mean, he just let me have it with both barrels. And you had a moral obligation. I said, well, you had a moral obligation not to screw around my contract. Ultimately, they did relent. But I didn't understand the negotiation process. Again, I didn't have a buffer. And I have very few regrets in my life. But the way I handled that situation, I would say, is one regret. And for a number of years, Coach Shula literally hated me. I believe that 100%.
You have to remember that at this time, the Miami Dolphins, you know, they bring Shula down there.
Right.
Those were unbelievable years. Those were 3 years they went to the Super Bowl.
Tell me.
In 72, that's the season that the Miami Dolphins were undefeated, won the whole thing undefeated. And what happens? The starting quarterback gets hurt.
Earl Morrall winds up being the quarterback.
Earl Morrall, the backup. You never know. That could have been you going in 1972 in the NFL, not in the CFL, on an undefeated Super Bowl championship team.
And I could have won the lottery at 800 and some odd million, too. But that's sort of the analogy I try and bring to myself. I reckon, believe me, I hear that all the time. I went out, interesting, I went out and decided to I got a pinky ring made. I don't have it anymore. I don't know where it is, but I had a pinky ring made.
I mean, you are from Jersey, for God's sake.
Of course I am. I had to have a pinky ring.
Right.
So I went and got myself a pinky ring, and when I was in Canada, and I had the diamonds put in for all of the championships that the Dolphins had won when I was away. So yes, it stayed on my mind. So I was sort of celebrating as a former Miami Dolphin.
Right,
I don't sure, but
and I know that you look back at your time in the CFL, in the Canadian Football League. You took it to the Grey Cup. You liked it.
I loved it up there. The game was suited for me. My first year in 1971.
A little more room for you to move around.
Room around. It was 3 downs. You threw it around a lot.
And maybe the most significant thing that happened there, outside of you taking them to a Grey Cup, is you break your right leg while you're there.
And here's the thing. The look on my face just sort of says it all.
Right.
You know, this
here I am in the CFL. The Dolphins are great, and I'm up here with a broken leg.
And I was back in 7 weeks playing. They built a special protective thing for my leg, so I was back playing in 7 weeks.
Because with all the stuff about Joe Theisman, too small, all that, there's not one person that would ever doubt how tough you were, and I would say are. I mean, toughness was kind of your calling card,
I would say so.
even at the position of quarterback.
I think that the position of quarterback is the single most difficult position to play in all of professional sports. And the one attribute that you must possess to have any chance at success is mental toughness, as well as physical toughness. Because you're going to get beat up by the media. The coaches are going to rail you. Fans are going to give it to you. You're going to question yourself at times, your worthiness. But you can't succumb to those outside pressures, nor the inside pressures. You have to press through it.
How do you get back to the NFL? Your 3-year deal in Toronto's up.
George Allen trades a #1 pick for me.
Because the Dolphins own your rights.
They own my rights to come back. But they'd won 3 championships without me. So, do we really need Joe Theisman now? And so I wind up going, and George trades a #1 pick to the Dolphins.
And he was a hell of a salesman, right?
Unbelievable. And he was a lefty. And he'd always lick his thumb. He'd lick his thumb, and I sat with him, and he said, I can go get this guy, I can go get this guy and this guy, but I want you. I want you. Because I think you can help us. Now, Billy Kilmer's there. Billy's 10 years older than I am. Sonny's 11, 12 years
40.
older than I am. Oh, yeah, they're older guys. I'm thinking it's a good opportunity to be able to go. So these were the leaders of the football team, and I challenged that particular position. And I didn't do it in a very diplomatic way. I certainly look back and probably could have been a little bit different, but I am who I am. I make no apologies for it.
So you show up.
I show up, but I don't just show up.
No.
First thing I say is, I didn't come here to sit. I came here to play. Well, that upset Billy and Sonny just a little bit. Then the next thing I do is I wind up doing a television show on ABC TV there. And so I'm critiquing the games now. I have a 5-minute segment. So I'm critiquing them.
As, in essence, the third-string quarterback, you have a TV segment.
Absolutely. Got my own little segment. But wait, I'm not done yet. I write a book now on quarterbacking. Having never played quarterback in the National Football League, I'm writing a book modeled on the book I wrote in the Canadian Football League called Quarterbacking. I think that might have been the straw that broke the camel's back. And so what happened, and this is the story that I understand, don't know it to be true, but myths sometimes a lot more fun. So Billy and Sonny got together at a watering hole one night and decided that it didn't matter to them anymore which one of them played, as long as it wasn't me.
Your first taste of the NFL is literally returning punts.
See, I did it in college. I was a punt returner in college before I actually became the starting quarterback there, too. So now all of a sudden I'm catching punts, all the time after practice. I'm out with the jug machine catching punts behind my back, just getting really good at it. So I returned punts 1974, 1975.
And really kind of made yourself a pest on the bench.
No question.
In practice.
I was annoying.
If you're running scout team, you're trying to beat the living daylights out of the defense.
Just to understand a little bit, when you run scout team as a quarterback, you're supposed to throw interceptions to your first team defense so that they can get confidence. I felt like, why not make them work a little harder? And even though the card said I had to throw it over here to a guy running a hook, I like the look of the post on the backside.
Right.
Well, these guys over here know that the ball's not supposed to go over here. So they're not going quite as hard, and all of a sudden my guy catches a pass. That's not endearing yourself to teammates. And so I just always kept a challenge going. I mean, and that's the way, but when you're not starting, when you're 2 or 3, you've got to find a way to keep yourself involved. I just kept working and working and working until maybe I got the opportunity to play.
You went to Canada for 3 years. You sat on the bench and pestered everybody for 3 years.
Yeah.
That's 6 years of numbers that aren't on the back of your football card.
No.
You're knocking on the door at 30 years old.
Right.
That's a lot of lost time.
You could say it's lost time, but really, I just call it time invested in me, invested in a work ethic, developing who I was going to become if I had the chance to ever really get the job.
1978 is a pivotal year. Jurgensen and Kilmer are gone, and you become starting quarterback, and Joe Walton arrives as offensive coordinator.
Yeah, Joe was my teacher. Coach Walton, I call him Pops. He was like, he was always a second dad to me. He's always been my alternate dad, I guess you could say. And when I had both my father alive and Joe, two great men in my life. And when my dad passed, I still, Joe is still around, and Joe still pops to me. He's a really special guy. And this is probably, I think, from a New Orleans Saints game where he was unrelenting on me. I had pulled a hamstring, and I didn't run for a first down. It was 3rd and 6. And I came out, and I went down about 3 yards. He said, "Why did you run for the first down?" I said, "My leg, I couldn't." He said, "I don't care if you have to drag that thing 3 more yards. You have to get the first down." And he was a no-excuse kind of guy. Coach Walton was tough on me. After every game, he'd come in, and we'd go over it on Monday by ourselves. We'd sit in his office, and he'd have a yellow pad, and he'd have all these corrections. Well, we go out and play Kansas City, and I'm like, I don't know, 22 for 28, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. I go home that night, and I'm thinking, got him. Hey, what's he going to correct me on? I had a great game. Look at the stats. It was a terrific game. I walked in, 5 pages of corrections. I sat down, and he goes, he says, "Look." I said, "Oh." He said, "No, let me explain something to you, Joe." He said, "Listen, that's not a very good football team." He said, 2 of those passes that were touchdowns really should have been interceptions. They just blew the defense. He said, "I cannot allow you to think that you played great against an average football team. I want to prepare you for greatness when we play the Dallas Cowboys, who are a great football team. You have to play at that type of an efficiency level if you're going to be good." And that just has stayed with me.
Gibbs comes in after 80.
Right.
You don't start well for that season.
0-5.
0-5. But what happens after the 0-5 start to me is something I've always wanted to ask you about, because I know you went to see Gibbs at his house.
Yep.
What was that like, walking up to his front door with the conversation looming in the very near future?
You're 0-5. They're going to get rid of somebody. Me, not him. He's new, so he's probably going to stay.
He's not the guy that brought you there. He's not invested in Joe Theisman.
I'm not his, so what's the attachment? So I knock on the door, and he opens the door, and I guarantee you, he was the most shocked human being in the world. And I said, "Coach, we need to talk." He said, "Come on, we'll sit down." And I said, "Joe, look, I just don't feel like we're on the same page as far as the things we're doing." And he said, "Joe, look, you have television shows, radio shows, restaurants. You have all these business entities." He said, "I need somebody who is 100% committed to be the quarterback of my football team." I said, "Joe, I'll do this. I'll get rid of everything. If you want me to, I'll just divest myself from everything."
Did you mean that?
I did. I wanted it. And I said, "I'll do whatever I need to prove to you that I can be your quarterback. But you got to give me a chance, too." I had a goal to win a world championship. And from that day forward, that next game, we went 8-3.
You finished the year 8-8.
Right, yeah.
But it's starting to move.
We really started to create something in football that was unique, and that was the 2 tight end offense. And see, John Riggins, he's not a halfback. He's not a fullback. He's an R-back. We called him a remaining back, a single back. But led the league in touchdowns.
Unbelievable talent.
Unbelievable.
Did you get along with Riggins?
Oh, yeah. John and I got along great. We had the group of guys that I played with in Washington, I've always described as a group of characters with character. If you lined up our football team and asked them to cross the street with the white lines that are drawn there, maybe 30% would stay inside the white lines. Other guys would wait for traffic to come and then try and dodge cars. Some of them would try and go over on wires. Some of them would hang from lights. I mean, it was a group of characters. My wide receivers were 5'9", Virgil Say, Alvin Garrett, Charlie
Smurfs.
Brown, the Smurfs. Our offensive line called themselves the Hogs. They had their own posters. I'm not a quarterback of a football team. I'm the ringmaster of a circus.
In 1982, during that strike-shortened season, you guys stormed into the playoffs with a great 8-1 record. How was postseason play different for you then?
As you go through the playoffs, each round of the playoffs, the speed of the game changes. It becomes more and more intense. Everybody gets faster and faster till you ultimately reach the game, and then the speed really goes. The game I remember was the NFC Championship game against the Dallas Cowboys. It was against our arch enemies. It was against a team that we don't like, never have liked them. It was played at our stadium. They had brought in some aluminum seats and ringed the field with it. And the people were standing there pounding their feet at the end of that game. and literally the ground beneath my feet was shaking.
Can you still hear that?
I can hear it, I can see it, I can feel it. These visuals of my injuries, all these different things, but my feet are shaking. That moment, I mean, the Redskin Nation was like unreal, unbelievable.
They did it. They went through the Dallas Cowboys, a team that you have to if you're going to represent the NFC.
Look, and that'll run it out. In the meantime, the celebration goes on.
I mean, this was a great Dallas Cowboys team.
They've always were.
So good.
They were the barometer of excellence by which I measured myself as a professional football player. But the guy that I really sort of modeled myself after as a professional was Roger, because of the things that he could do.
And similar stature.
And similar in stature. He'd gone away. He went to the military for 4 years. I went away to Canada for 3. So we both were away from the game for a little while.
In 1982, how ready were you for that Super Bowl? I mean, this is a long, I mean, talking about you. This is a long
road.
A long push
Yeah.
to get to the top.
It's like I said, if I didn't believe in myself, who was going to believe in me? Remember, I wasn't tough enough. I was too skinny. I was too small. I was all those things that people said I couldn't be. And I wasn't going to believe anybody. I was just going to try and believe in my own abilities to be able to do something.
You're the leader. It's your team.
My responsibility, my job. Who do we wind up playing in the Super Bowl? The Miami Dolphins.
Coached by?
Don Shula. So I guaranteed another 10 years for him not to like me.
Right, yeah.
I mean, it's just like pile it right on. But
okay, so for those of you who don't remember, this is Super Bowl 17.
Correct.
17-13 Miami, late third quarter. You're down back toward your own end zone.
We're on probably our own 10, 11.
Let's roll the tape.
Theisman batted in the air. Almost a touchdown for Kim Camper. Oh, my.
Hey, Theisman cannot get the pass off. Rolls back against the grain. The batted ball there. Now watch Theisman go up and knock it out of the hands of Kim Camper.
Some have called that, and I think it works, the greatest incompletion in the history of the Super Bowl, which could have been backbreaking to your chances in that game. You're already trailing. It would have been a bigger hole.
There's no question in my mind we would never be able to overcome that deficit to drop back and throw against Bill Arnsparger and that great defense.
That's a tremendous heads-up play. I know it's just reaction.
The whole world went into slow motion. I turned to throw a quick hitch to the right. It was covered. And all of a sudden, the pressure came in. As I wheeled around, I wanted to hit Charlie, who'd gone in motion, Charlie Brown, and I threw it, and Kim went up. And as Kim goes up, the ball gets hit, and I managed to find it, and it feels like I've got cement. I'm running in cement. And in my mind, it's like, I've got to get there. And I knew I couldn't swat the ball. So I just leaped at the last minute to try and get my hand somewhere where I could strip it away from him. And I stripped it away. You could see how upset he was. And I'm sitting there in the end zone going, ooh, that was close.
Okay, so you're trailing at that point. Tell me about this play. There are different reports that I've read where you audibled to this play or you thought about audibling out of this play. It's a 4th and 1, right?
It's a 4th and 1 at a critical time in the game. And I never, ever, I will tell you, absolutely never thought about audibling out of this play.
Let's see who'll win this battle of strategy.
Riggins. He's going to go all the way unless Blackwood can catch him, and he can't.
John gets in the end zone, and we get, we celebrate. I think that particular play sort of broke their spirit a little bit. That's when we sort of took control of the line of scrimmage with the size of that hole and what John was able to do.
Hail to the Redskins. Braves on the warpath. Victory for old D.C.
How does that make it? Looking
I get goosebumps watching it. I really do. I mean, it was an unbelievable opportunity to be able to experience something that is so hard to describe. Winning a Super Bowl, words are very difficult to come up with to describe the emotion of the moment. That tells you what the magnitude of that particular game is, and it changed my life. It gave me an opportunity to go on to be able to talk about being part of a champion, to be able to talk about the things that I believe are important when you want to be a champion. Why should you settle for average? Why should you just show up and do something? Why don't you try and be better than you think you can be?
Did winning the Super Bowl change the drive?
It changed me for the worse. It didn't make me better. I had a goal to win a world championship, and I did. That's why I have so much respect for Troy Aikman, for Terry Bradshaw, for Eli Manning, for Tom Brady, for men that have won multiple Super Bowls, because they didn't stop there. We were a much better football team in 1983 than we were in '82. We were a record-setting football team. We lost 2 games that year by 2 points. One to the Cowboys and one to the Packers, 48-47 on a Monday night. I mean, we were an unbelievable juggernaut. We wind up losing to the Raiders in Super Bowl 18. And I played a lousy football game. I got down to Tampa, and I was going to have a good time, and I was going to enjoy the Super Bowl experience. Unfortunately, I did. I just didn't focus enough on the task at hand, which was beating the Raiders. And I look back now, and that's why I admire people that once you think you've achieved that ultimate, what's the next step? The next step, the next step.
So you go in '82 from winning it to '83 losing in the Super Bowl to '84 commentating as a guest commentator, as an active player for the Super Bowl. That would have been Super Bowl 19.
Correct.
So that's kind of starting, not that you didn't already have kind of a sense of what was to come later on in your life. That's '84. So what kind of year were the Washington Redskins having in 1985?
Not necessarily a good one. I was not playing well personally. We were struggling. I think we were 4-5 going into the middle of the season. The game against the Giants on Monday Night Football.
That Monday night game against the Giants, you're a part of a moment where people of my age and older can tell you where they were if they were watching the game when the most horrific leg injury that I've ever witnessed through a television happened, and it happened to you.
Yeah, a lot of people come up to me and tell me they know exactly where they were. They use the analogy of the Kennedy assassination.
I'm not going to make you turn around and watch this. Mm-hmm. I will ask you, though, have you ever witnessed this injury years later? Have you looked at it?
Saw it on the 20th anniversary of my injury.
Okay. You stay looking at me.
I'll stare at you.
1st and 10. Riggins, flea flicker, back to Theisman. Theisman's in a lot of trouble. And it was Lawrence Taylor who slammed Theisman to the ground at the 42-yard line. Quickly, Lawrence Taylor is up, saying Theisman is hurt. We'll look at it with the reverse angle one more time, and I suggest if your stomach is weak, you just don't watch. Number 56 is Lawrence Taylor. He makes the sack. And Theisman's right leg, unfortunately, was caught under Lawrence Taylor. They were booing a short while ago, and now there's an ovation for Joe Theisman, who I'm sure has played his last play of the 1985 season.
It's hard to watch, and I don't know why it is that way for us on the outside. We're all made of skin and bone, and you realize that a body can react that way. It gets a gasp from the audience. What was it like to live that? When you think back, what do you remember? And even maybe the next day, what did you remember?
I remember everything. I remember lying on the field. I remember the faces around me. I remember Joe Gibbs, Bubba Tyre, our trainer. First thing I said to Bubba, I never went into shock. My leg from the knee down was completely numb. Never went into shock. I remember turning to Bubba and go, Bubba, call my mom and dad, tell them I'm okay. That's the first thing I told them. And then and then they start to work on my leg, and Coach Gibbs comes up and he kneels down and he's looking at him. He's going, Joe, for 6 years we've been together. Joe, you've been such an important part of this football team. Joe, this is a heck of a mess you've left me in.
He didn't say that.
He did. And
what?
He did, and I said, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I am, But yeah, but he was trying to, he was trying to make light of the moment. And And
so it was a joke.
It was,
okay.
absolutely.
An ill-timed, awful joke.
I guess, but I understand what he was trying to do. And then I looked up to the left, and there's this big Longines clock at RFK Stadium, and I believe it was like 10:05 p.m. And I saw the clock, and I could feel the moisture on my back. Today, I can lie down and go back in that moment, and I can feel the moisture, and I hear the sounds and smell the smells of that stadium. They're all like they were right here. The senses are so keen to them. And when I went off that field, they had given me an ovation like I'd never heard in my life. And to go off that stadium, out of that stadium, and to that ovation, to the people thanking me, and I could never thank them enough for being their quarterback was really something special. Tuesday morning, Lawrence calls. Nurse comes walking in. She says, Mr. Theisman, Mr. Taylor's on the phone. Would you like to speak to him? I said, give me the phone. I said, LT, is that you? He says, yeah, Joe, how you doing? I said, not very well. He says, why? I said, why? You broke both bones in my leg, for crying out loud. He says, Joe, you have to understand something. I don't do things halfway. I'll call you later.
Only in the NFL.
Only in the NFL. But then about 4 years after that, it's all related to the leg because it changed my life. You have to understand, I had so much success as a player, as a part of a team that was successful. But it just changed my life because I had become so self-absorbed that I really didn't need anybody. That moment took away the one thing that I held above everything else, my ability to play football. I was defined by Joe Theisman, football player. I wasn't a man, I was a football player. And in my mind, that was my validation. That's who I was. And so for me, it was an unbelievable, humbling experience that I look back on. Those little lessons that you learn through that experience, but that was the point that changed my life. And every day I try and work to be a better person, to treat people better, to understand people more, just to appreciate life as much as we can. And that moment, that night, changed my life completely. About 4 weeks later, when I went back to Redskin Park, I went back to my locker. Steve Bartkowski was sitting in it. My entire 12-year career was in a cardboard box in the equipment room waiting for me to pick it up. It is a cold business, and that's the way you have to understand it. It's great to be in it, but once you leave it or once you get hurt, you're a pariah. You have no place when you're hurt. It's the loneliest, most disconcerting feeling I've ever gone through. You're a part of the team, but you're really not a part of the team.
And you had never been through that. You didn't miss a game after your rookie year until that horrific injury.
Yep.
So tough doesn't even begin to describe it.
And I didn't think it was over. I didn't think it was over at all. I was ready to go back and play. I wanted to go play. The next year, in 1986, I go out to work out for everybody, and I promised my return. I was coming back, and I felt like I was going to be able to. And then I went out and worked out for our doctors and the insurance people because I had an insurance policy. And I went out on the field. It was supposed to be an hour workout. After 15 minutes, everybody left the field. So where are you guys going? I'm not done yet. Bubba, our trainer, walked up and he says, "Oh yes, you are." And that was the harsh reality of it. But I never stopped dreaming. Phil Simms always gives me a hard time. Boomer Esiason always gives me a hard time. Say, Joe, give up the dream, man. Give up the dream. I never gave up the dream. At the age of 50, I threw defensive drills the week of the Super Bowl for the Baltimore Ravens in preparation for them to play the Giants in the year of 2000. I threw the entire scout team drills on Wednesday. Brian Billick was a good friend and let me do it.
How much fun was that?
It was unbelievable. I threw a touchdown pass against them. And I remember Jim Fossil, the coach, saying, I have to feel really good about the fact that Theisman's running the scout team. It turned out the Ravens won.
Yeah.
But it's, that's the one thing I miss. If there's one thing that I wish I could be able to continue to do is throw. Just to get out and throw the ball around. I love doing it.
What's next for you?
I really want to try and figure out a way that I can give more back to people. I have a website of which I created, and I wish I'd have done it many years ago. It's joetheisman.com. People can log on, and there's items there like helmets, jerseys, things like that, that I ask people to sign. And I have a dollar amount assigned to those, that I would like them to make that dollar amount contribution to St. Jude's Children's Research Center. Because we all talk about success. What is success? You're a successful broadcaster. Your dad was a successful broadcaster. You know, every people out here who are watching have success in their life. But is it really success? Or it is an aspiration to try and accomplish something. And a friend of mine said to me, Joe, I really believe true success is this. When you have achieved something in life and you get the chance to give something back, then you become a success. That's the success I'd like to become.
We'd like to end this show with a few fun questions. I have not seen them stapled shut. There's no possible way I could have broken in here.
Karnak would, though.
Yes.
Karnak would have. There we go.
Here we go. Would you rather never get tired or never get hungry?
I'd rather never get tired. If I never got tired, I wouldn't get hungry.
Yeah, you could find something.
I could find something.
Would you rather lose your cell phone or lose $1,000? This really speaks to the essence of a person who runs his business off his cell phone and how little you really would care for $1,000. So be
not
ready
necessarily lose
to be hated out there.
I'm okay.
If you say, I would rather lose $1,000.
Well, if I look at it this way, if I lost my cell phone, I would probably lose a lot more than $1,000. So I would say I would hate to lose my cell phone.
I thought you might say that. What keeps
But
you
I
up?
really wouldn't like to give up the grand either.
No, I know. What keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up
If
at
anything.
night? If anything.
What worries you?
My family, my grandchildren, my children, making sure they're okay. Make sure my wife is okay, is always okay with who I am, what I am. I'm blessed to have a fantastic woman by the name of Robin. She was Robin Smith. She's Robin Theisman. We've been together 24 years, and she's meant so much to me and helped me grow as a person. And the thought of not being able to help other people, like my family and my family unit, to be able to grow and become what they want to be, that would scare me. It would scare me. But most of the nights I put my head on the pillow. I'm at peace with the Lord. I'm at peace with a lot of things. And I know if I can snuggle up next to Robin late at night, I can lay my head down on a pillow and sleep like a baby.
You know what? I want to end it with that. That's too good. Who have we had sitting here in this undeniable icon chair here in this studio? We've had a guy who grew up in New Jersey, his protective mother who wouldn't let him play football till the age of 12, this drive, a young person who was told that he was too small and wasn't tough enough, who was an NFL MVP and a Super Bowl champion, and somebody who is inspiring people to this day. The great Joe Theisman.
Thank you. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Off we go.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.